Welcome to the Android Police Podcast. I'm your host, Cody Toombs.
And I'm Corbin Davenport.
And this week has actually been kind of a fun one. We've seen some Android Q's latest beta. A couple of things changed. There's some bizarre carrier news, and well, you know, as usual, there's some sad but positive news for Android Wear. But first, Pixel 4 renders. There's some new ones. These are showing off a little bit of the front of the phone. Well, go ahead, Corbin.
Oh, no, you go ahead. I was just resizing my window so I can get everything in.
Yeah, so they show a slightly, not a huge, but a noticeable bezel on the top and a slightly smaller bezel on the bottom, which, you and me have both talked about this. We kind of wish that they were symmetrical bezels, but otherwise, the phone does not look bad. There's nothing grossly wrong with the front of this device. At least I don't think so.
Yeah. I was surprised when I saw this, definitely the first time, because I assumed, again, Google would go for another notch or try to do like a pinhole like what Samsung's doing, or maybe they'd go off the hook and try to use like the pop-up periscope camera that OnePlus is doing. But it's kind of interesting to see them just go back to what worked. It looks very much like the Pixel 2 on the front. It's definitely an improvement. I do wish the bezels were symmetrical, and I do wish they still kept the front-facing speaker, because that is kind of a bummer that's on the bottom. But I'm sure this will look fine. The different bezels might take a little bit of getting used to, but seems like a well-designed phone. And of course, there's still the big old camera bump on the back with lots of cameras and sensors on it that we don't quite know yet. Except we do know that the cameras are, one of them is a normal one and one of them is a what was telephoto. The other one? Telephoto lens. Okay. And then there's the flash and what looks like a time of flight sensor, but we can't be 100% sure yet. So yeah, it's a little bit surprising, but I think it'll look good. Probably get less complaints in our comments about how ugly the phone is.
Well, at the very least, no grotesquely oversized notch, which I think to me, that's the big improvement above all else. But at least appearance wise, the biggest improvement for sure is actually getting that second rear camera. But the rest of it we'll see. There's the thing that has also stood out, and obviously people recognize this from the rear, from the renders of the rear of the phone. There's no fingerprint sensor, which now that we're seeing the front of it too, and we have a pretty good idea about the size of the power button and everything else at this point, the only real explanation is they're either doing an under display fingerprint reader or they're just going to go with Face ID camera trickery, which I still hate that method.
Yeah, I feel like they won't. I don't know if we've got any concrete rumors about Face ID on this phone yet. But I know obviously Qualcomm has their full, not optical fingerprint sensor, but it's like ultrasonic, I believe. Something. It's one of those. But now
it's ultrasonic.
Okay, yeah. So now they have an actual sensor that's supposed to be kind of secure. So that's probably enough for Google to put it in the Pixel. But yeah, and I'm interested to see what the smaller one looks like as well. If it'll have the same design, or if maybe it'll have a little bit more bezel on the top and bottom. Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, it would be nice if we could see both phones at this point. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it feels a little awkward that we don't have that.
Yeah, that's always been, I don't know, that's always been a thing. As long as the Pixels have been around, all of the leaks and news and information is always about the XL and never the small one.
Yeah.
I think it was pretty late into the cycle last year when we saw the smaller Pixel 3 for the first time. So
that's right, it was. And I remember specifically being nervous, if they put notches on both phones, I might just skip the whole generation.
Yeah.
fortunately, they gave a phone to those of us who know not to go notch.
Yeah, so I think I just found the first post we did of the smaller Pixel 3, and that was in August 30th of 2018. So that took a while to get our first look at the smaller one.
And I really do remember, I think it was Pixel 2, if I recall. The leaks for that one didn't come out until later, and that's when everyone noticed that it had just grotesquely huge bezels for a phone that was that definitely should not have needed.
That was real bad.
Yeah, it was like that's the bezels from the Pixel 1 XL on a small phone. Yeah, not a good move.
HTC's design at work there.
A little bit. Anyway, so if you're listening to the show right now, we appreciate it and we love having you here. You can also help support us if you are a Twitch subscriber, or if you'd like to do a Twitch subscription. It gives us a little bit of money and gives you access to the infamous Rhine emoji, which, I was about to type into chat and I think I need to go re-up my subscription.
Oh, shame on you, Cody.
Please cover me. Help me out here.
Wait, I got it. I got you. No, wait. It says no matches for me too. Oh no.
Oh no. Wait, what do David Lama has us.
Thank you.
We're covered. Thank you,
David.
David.
I'm gonna re-up my sub real quick. I've been caught in a corner.
Likewise. How did that happen to both of us at once? Anyway, Amazon Prime members have a free I can't speak today suddenly. No. Amazon Prime members have a free Twitch Prime subscription every month, and you do have to re-up that every month with whichever channels you like, hopefully us. And that gives us a little bit of Amazon's money. It keeps the podcast going. In order to subscribe, just go to our Twitch page at twitch.tv/AndroidPolice, and there's a little button up towards the top that says subscribe. Just hit that and look for the free subscription button. Let's see if you are. I'm looking around here because I totally went out of order on our script.
Oh,
yeah.
Come on. You can't even show correctly.
See, I need to put this in bullet points. I don't like reading scripts.
You're too rattled. You're too rattled. You can't even read.
Weirdly, I do great with everything else. It's all because everything's in bullet points.
I gotta condense the information for you, Cody.
No, I'll do it.
Cody's attention span's very short. We have to put everything in small words for Cody.
No, it's absolutely true. Well, I do like big words. I just like small points.
So what I need to do is I need to put the script in the header 1 size for you.
In all sincerity, I've actually got my own slightly altered version of the script. I just haven't cut it down to bullet points yet.
It's in big words.
You can find links, or you can find instructions for linking accounts between Twitch and Amazon Prime below on the channel page, or if you're listening to the audio version, those instructions are in the episode description.
Good job, Cody.
Yeah, that's all. Good. I got there.
It's all right.
Success.
You know what? At least you're on the ball today more than Google. You're not out here pushing broken apps left and right, which I don't even know if we'll.
All right, so
today, but should I just?
You know what? We're 100% putting that in right now. That is our next topic. Okay. I'm grabbing the link as we speak. So in case you signed up to the Google Messages beta, do not update.
Yeah.
If you're listening to the audio version of this, chances are
it's too late.
You may have already made this mistake.
It's too late for you because I'm very late with making the audio versions. So go ahead. Okay.
I'll take this.
I think this is the first beta release for Messages because
it is.
Oh no. Well, you know what they say about beta quality software, and especially Google beta. Google beta is basically an alpha, is what you should be learning here. But yeah, so don't update Android Messages. If you've probably already updated, because most people just listen to the audio version, which goes out like 2 days later, because I'm very slow to do it. So I'm sorry in advance if you didn't hear this before. You should really be reading our site. But yeah, so if you're listening to the live version, don't update. Do not update Android Messages.
Yeah.
And if you do update, just switch over to a different SMS app for a little bit and let Google figure its own stuff out.
Or you could always just roll back using a downloaded version off of APK Mirror.
There you go.
Just throwing that out there. But yeah, this thing crashes no matter what. Like I've even tried clearing the app data, clearing cache. It's toast. Like reboots, nothing fixes it. So
Oh boy.
yeah, they pushed out a bad version. I'm suspecting. I've got no specific reason for this. I've just seen it happen before. The going theory is that this might require a newer version of Google Play services, and that just hasn't rolled out to anybody yet. So that sort of thing honestly does happen a fair amount with the betas. It's unfortunate, but it does happen.
Yep. So speaking of rollouts,
Yes, on very beta software.
Yes, on very beta. We got the next Android Q beta earlier this week, and this one's a pretty minor one because we're getting late into the beta cycle, so we're not seeing a huge amount of major changes. It's mostly just on fixing things at this point, and a little bit of extra polish. Of course, Google's working until the end of the class on that gesture navigation because I think they're still tweaking that, right? I didn't put it in the doc, but I'm pretty sure gestures changed again.
They did indeed.
Oh boy.
I
don't know how I forgot that until now. I'm very good at making documents.
Okay, are you talking about
I found it. It's in the chat now. But yeah, so there's a little bit more tweaking to gesture nav and how it works with the side menus. And this is, of course, the full screen gesture nav, where I don't think you have the bottom bar in this mode, or it's very small. But supposedly there should be a little bit less wonky behavior going on with the gesture navigation. And of course, you still have this with the earlier Q gesture nav, with the Pi gesture nav, all just mixed in because that's just how Google's going these days, I guess.
I'm also pasting in that link because it's sort of related.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're definitely tweaking the gestures again, which how much do they really want people to stick with this? I kind of get that they're working on it, but it's a little weird to change them with every release.
I just think they started this release with because they the first betas had tweaks already to the gesture nav, and I think they were probably going to stick with that. And then they decided later on in the dev cycle, they were like, this isn't any good. We need to change this again. And here we are, on basically the release candidate of Android Q. And there's still pretty major changes going on with this navigation scheme. So not good. But also with Android Q, there was a lot of stuff that was rumored the past couple of days because there were reports from people who supposedly had early builds or were in communication with developers. A lot of the stuff that was rumored didn't materialize in this release, but of course they still could come later. There's probably going to be another beta, I would assume, and then of course the final release that's going to have a little bit of added goodness. But some of the other stuff in this beta, because there was actually some things not related to gestures, notifications got changed again. Again, this is one of those things that Google's been tweaking every beta, so it's a little bit hard to keep track. I was definitely very confused by the time I finished writing this article. But so Google's changed some of the wording with notifications. So prioritized is now alerting, and gentle is now called silent. So I think that's a little bit more clear. That was probably a good move. Gentle didn't. That kind of sounded weird. I get the intention, but it's hard to understand the context there. And prioritize, like it definitely told you, like it would go up to the top, but alerting, like it sounds more like, oh, this is the thing that's going to buzz my phone. Also, Android now actually puts the silent notifications, so like the lower priority ones, in their own little box below all the alert notifications. and you can just swipe those all away at once, which is kind of nice because usually those types are like the junk notifications, like the like Twitter, random Twitter mentions, or like a I in the screenshot I showed, it was like uploading files to Dropbox, that kind of stuff.
Small
Um,
technicality, you actually can't swipe the whole group away. There's a little tick box that you tap.
yeah,
It's an
yeah,
X instead of a swipe, which I'll bet anything they fix that in the next release and change it to a swipe so it works like everything else.
maybe we'll see.
I hope they
But
do because it's weird the way it is now. I mean, I'm fine
well,
with it,
I
but
think I think they're probably going to reserve swiping for the individual because you can still swipe away the individual notifications in this box.
yeah, but then like if they have it as the whole group is swipeable, it would be the same as what like email groups and stuff like that. Like you can swipe the whole group away or
Yeah,
individuals.
that's true. They could do something like that. Also, one of the things that changed yet again was snoozing. This has actually changed every single beta. I went back and checked. So now, how snoozing works is that it's disabled by default, at least in this beta. So a lot of people were wondering where my snooze button went. The answer is that you have to go hunt it down in the settings app and turn it back on. And then when you swipe a notification either direction, you'll get your snooze button back. So that's a lot of fun. Um, that covers pretty much all the changes to notifications. There was a couple other really small things. Um,
Well, okay, yeah, hit those and then we can come back to the gesture nav thing.
okay. So one of the things that people have been asking for years that Google finally did is there is a dark boot screen on the Pixels. It's no longer a white glaring in your face when you reboot your phone at 11 p.m., burning your retinas alive. But the black boot screen is only on the Pixel 3 for some reason. We have no idea why, but it only works on the Pixel 3 and 3 XL. I was very disappointed when I rebooted my original Pixel and I was still blinded.
So I know that this is a weird thing to note, but it's actually stood out to me in the past. I have totally rebooted my phone, and not for that purpose, but I've actually been happy to have a white boot screen a few times because I've walked around in the dark using it as a flashlight while it's booting, and then wait for it to wake back up, and then turn on the flashlight. But
that's a quick flashlight, though. Android boots up in like 10 seconds now.
depends on which Pixel you're using.
That's true.
But yeah, no, it's actually not that bad. Regardless, though, it's that 10 seconds without the light. You're wandering around in the dark. You're lost.
Yeah. Also, screen pinning is fixed. People were upset about screen pinning being broken with all the changes to gesture nav. I guess screen pinning kind of got lost in the cracks for Google, but nope, it's back and it works. So you can pin apps once again for when you hand your phone off to people you don't want going through all your stuff. Another small change is that there was some upset people earlier this year when it came to light that starting with Android Pie, Android no longer searched for Wi-Fi networks at the same speed as earlier versions, and like if you had an app that was scanning for Wi-Fi networks, it would get very heavily throttled. And some people were upset about that, especially the developers of those apps who had no idea what was going on because this wasn't like Google didn't announce this. It was only found out later, much later after Pi came out. But in Android Q Beta 5, there's a switch in the developer options. You can turn that throttling off and go back to sucking away your battery life if you want to do that. That's totally up to you now.
And now that they've relented on that little detail, it's going to totally set the precedent. Everyone else is going to want them to relent on all of the other various rules
they
and
open the floodgates,
restrictions.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, guaranteed. Someone out there is going to be like, okay, now you can give us back the access to the clipboard, right?
Oh yeah, you got to be careful there.
It's coming.
I imagine this might have been one of those things where there was some corporate customer that was like, you broke something I need for this internal app real bad. I need it back, Google.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, because like again, like you can rewrite your way around like the file changes and everything. Like you couldn't do anything about this. That's what a lot of people are upset about. But to circle back to gesture navigation, because of course there was something I forgot to mention, is that gesture nav won't work with third-party launchers, at
But
least
just
when
for right
Android,
now.
yeah, just for when Android Q comes out. But okay, so here's the thing. I don't really care about this main story, but what is interesting to me is Google's confirming a post-launch Android Q update. So are we going to go back to the 0.1 cycle that we had ages ago, or are they going to do some magic with the Project Mainline? I think, is that the real name for it now? The modular updates.
It probably is.
Okay.
I can't even keep
Yes,
their
it
code
is.
names straight
Okay.
anymore.
Yeah, it is. So yeah, so if you have a third-party launcher set up, you can only do the like. There's a screenshot in our article if you want to see, but right now there's 3 different navigation schemes in Android Q. There's the 3 buttons, classic. There's the 2 buttons which are on Pi, and then there's the new completely gestural nav where like you swipe up on the screen, and that last one does not work with third-party launchers. So it kind of. Oh, go ahead.
Do we know what happens with OEMs that have their own? Because I know that they had a extra option for their own gestures. I wonder if those are disabled or not.
Well, I know a lot of OEM launchers. They're just the AOSP Launcher 3 with like a couple minor
Yeah,
tweaks
that's
to it,
true.
so it probably won't affect them too much. But yeah. Yeah, this actually does remind me of when gesture navs were first introduced, and you couldn't use, or no, I'm sorry, the new multitasking view. I think that was in Pi, where if you switched to a third party launcher, it went back to the
Yeah.
stacked multitasking. Is it still like that? I think it is.
I don't know.
Yeah, I
don't use third-party launchers ever, really.
Yeah, I haven't used my Pixel in a while, so I'm not totally sure. But
I don't know. For me, it's like every once in a while to test stuff, I'll go to a third-party launcher, but
yeah,
I'm kind of stuck on Pixel.
yeah. But it is kind of interesting to see like Google trying to combine the launcher and the system more. But at the same time, that causes frustration for everyone who wants to use a third-party launcher. And I expect by the end of the week there'll be a couple editorials about how Google's Android's becoming iOS. So, because there always are.
Well, speaking of third-party interactions,
excellent trend. We're really on a roll today. Yes. You see, I organized the doc in a way that makes these easier.
Well, that one took a little work, but it works.
It did.
So YouTube, or rather Google and Amazon, have truly buried the hatchet officially. A while back, there was, of course, a little kerfuffle between the two, as some of Amazon's products were making use of YouTube without showing ads. They were doing kind of hinky stuff, a little bit outside of the acceptable use policy. And in turn, Google kind of did things back to Amazon. It was a little back and forth. Anyway, so they famously kind of said, no, we're cool now. We're going to be friends. And it took several months. But as of, this was what, 2 days ago? No. Yeah, 2 days ago. YouTube is officially launching on Fire TV, and Amazon Prime Video is going to now support Chromecast and Android TVs. Notably Android TVs in addition to the ones that were already supported, which were the Shield and Sony TVs. Or sorry, Shield and Sony. Yes.
I never thought I'd see the day when Prime Video added Chromecast support. I think this was a day to be celebrated. I did not do any celebrating though.
I gotta admit, I really never saw it coming either. I mean, like, I always logically knew it would happen, but at the same time, it just felt like it wouldn't.
They said a couple months ago that they were like working on it, but That was the same thing where, because like this has been going on for actual years, and it's been really entertaining to cover it, because this whole thing started years ago when Amazon put in a new policy that you cannot sell a streaming device or a media player or whatever on their store unless it played Amazon Video, because they said that'd be too confusing for people. Because apparently we're all dum dums and we think that anything you buy on the store must also work with the store's streaming service. So that's when they took down like the Nexus player and the Chromecast and everything from Amazon, and then it then there was kind of a tension between Google and Amazon, and then that accelerated when the Echo Show had YouTube and it was hacked on there and didn't show ads, and that made YouTube angry. And then Amazon Amazon actually worked with like Firefox to get oh, my connection's going out.
I still hear
Uh-oh.
you okay. Yeah, we're still good.
Shit.
Do you hear me? Oh, and looks like he is now out. Let's give him a minute to see if he comes back. In the meantime, we'll just do the quick Twitch shill because why not? We have it in the schedule. If you'd like to help support the show, just go to twitch.tv/androidpolice and subscribe there. Your subscriptions help us out. They keep the show running. Subscribers will, of course, get the infamous Ryan emoji. And look, if you don't know this routine yet, now you do. Corbin's back, so continue.
I have returned. I don't know what happened to my internet. I'm on my tether now, so we should be smooth sailing. Oh,
It's a little jumpy,
left.
but
that was my. Okay.
But yeah,
Right.
we could actually still hear you earlier.
No, what
It
happened
was
to
you
my
who couldn't hear me.
now, and goes wrong.
Ooh, dude, you're really, really choppy.
Oh, heck, wait.
Yeah, I'm not sure that this is working out. Okay, well, he'll be back shortly. Let's see. I already did the Twitch shill. Now I don't have filler. I am hanging out. All right, Corbin, you back?
Yes, I'm
Awesome.
back. I'm gonna hold my phone up in the air for maximum reception. Gotta throw them in the air like they just don't care. I'm just gonna put it right there. We're all good. Okay, so I'm probably gonna go out several more times. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm sorry.
Actually, you're sounding pretty good now.
Okay, I'm sure that'll go away soon. But yeah, I'm very surprised by this. I'm happy to see it because part of the reason I never I obviously have Amazon Prime Video because I have Prime, but I've never really used it because it's hard to watch on a big screen. Because I refuse to use their garbage sticks that don't work. Even bought it. I was suckered into buying a Fire TV stick because I wanted to watch Doctor Who on TV, and Doctor Who is now Prime exclusive. In extreme, like Amazon's the only one with the license to stream. Doctor Who. Oh, what the heck going on?
Yeah,
Hello?
your
Hello?
video is mostly like choppy. Are you not hearing me now? Okay, he's gone again. Wait, are you? Okay. To questions in the chat room, he does have broadband internet. The problem is he's in the middle of an area that's got a storm going on right now. So he tried switching to his phone's hotspot. That didn't. That clearly is not working out super well. So we may or may not be having.
Hello.
You're back.
Yeah,
You're on the wrong microphone.
Oh, damn it. Okay.
Jitsi at work.
Oh.
Technical difficulties, my friends. It is clearly that type of a week. Um, it's almost like we're back to Hangouts days. Anyway, I'll just say it. I don't know. I never really had much of a problem with Amazon Prime not being on other stuff because I had the Shield. And once they came to the Shield, like it kind of cleared up the issue for me. But it was always so weird that Amazon would choose to cut off a fairly large audience because for a long time they were obviously keeping out Apple. They were keeping out all of Google's various ways, Android TV and Chromecast. Uh, it, and I think they were working with Roku. I think Roku only like non Apple thing that was really streaming Apple stuff, except for like partner companies, which Sony was, of course, the famous exception. Sony TVs had Prime streaming before I think any other Android product.
Yep.
Welcome
Hello?
back.
Okay. Yeah. It's just going to be one of those nights, I guess.
It could be. Are you back on broadband or?
No.
Okay.
Oh. Damn it.
I believe to speak XJ's question, I believe Amazon Prime has been on Apple TV for something like 6 months or so. I swear it was mentioned during one of the Apple keynotes, but it's been long enough. I'm not quite sure I remember. Corbin, are you hearing me? Uh-oh. Corbin?
What?
Oh, okay. You can hear me.
I mean, it's going like in and out. I don't know what's going on. So I don't really know what to do here. I don't see your video at all, but okay, wait, now I see your video.
Okay.
I don't know what's happening. So
all right, we
okay.
might be in shaky ground.
We'll keep rolling with it. Let's go on to the next topic. What else we got?
As a thought, I know it's not great for the live viewers, but you might try killing your video.
Okay.
Just so it'll ease up your bandwidth usage.
All right. It's all right. You guys can't see my beautiful face anymore, but I assure you I'm still beautiful.
How could they have any doubt?
Yeah. So speaking of, I don't know what this transition is, but there's some crazy carrier news happening, y'all. It's crazy carrier news day because Google and Dish might be coming together to create another carrier. Because if you guys remember a while ago, it was reported that the Justice Department wanted T-Mobile to sell off some spectrum if it wanted to merge with Sprint. And of course, I'm sure T-Mobile and Sprint weren't too happy about that, but there hasn't been an official buyer. And again, not all this is rumors and reports from sites. None of this has been officially confirmed by anyone, but we're pretty sure that that's a requirement that they have to sell spectrum, and also that Sprint has to sell Boost Mobile, which is their MVMO. So it was reported a while back that Dish might be interested in buying the spectrum, and Dish is a serial hoarder of spectrum. They love buying up spectrum and then doing absolutely nothing with it. And actually, T-Mobile and their CEO has publicly.
Uh-oh. Corbin, you just went silent.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm back, I think.
Okay, I hear you again. Yeah, you're
Hello?
back. You're back. Do you not hear me now? Uh-oh. Okay, this could go ugly real quick. All right, I hear you're clicking. Okay. All right, for the audio version, I have a feeling we're going to have to do some editing to clean up the audio version of this.
Oh, this is going to be a lot of editing. I'm not looking forward to this. All right, I'm going to start over because I'm going to have to edit this anyway. So I'm just going to start over.
That's fair.
And I'm on my tether now, but now I've got my video off. We'll see what happens. So anyway, to start again, it was reported a while back that as part of the T-Mobile and Sprint acquisition, that T-Mobile would have to sell off some spectrum to create basically a replacement for Sprint, is what selling off the spectrum would do. And Sprint would also have to sell off Boost Mobile. And it was reported a while back that Dish Network was interested in buying said spectrum. But Dish is a notorious buyer of spectrum and does not do anything with it. Dish is currently sitting on a lot of spectrum that it has said it wants to use for a 5G network. Hasn't happened. T-Mobile has actually vocally complained about Dish's holdings for a while and has said that they need to be taken back by the FCC and re-auctioned. And yeah, so Dish was interested, and now it seems like Google might come together with Dish to create a new carrier. And the hearsay is that Dish would come with its spectrum that it's buying as a result of the acquisition, and Google would run the network with all the expertise it has gained from running Google Fi, which, if all of our reports about customer service nightmares with Google Fi is accurate, I'm not sure if that's a good thing, but that's what the rumor says. And it's been, it's been interesting for years. There's been speculation that Google would try to make a carrier, and of course they have um, Google Fiber. I almost forgot the name because it's been a while since we've heard about our friends at Google Fiber, but yep, they're still around. So it'd be interesting if of all people, Dish and Google came together to create a new carrier. But again, going from the customer service nightmares we hear about from Google Fi all the time, I'm not sure if it would be a very competitive network, but it'd be interesting. So, yeah, crazy story. And yeah, so speaking of, do you have anything fun to say, Cody, about that?
Sorry, it was just slightly modifying our OBS view.
Okay.
You'll see it later.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, I mean, it's good that there could be, in theory, another competitor popping up, but I want to see how Dish would actually handle this, because Dish is sort of infamous for having some interesting handling with customers. There are a lot of people who aren't super big fans of Dish for pretty justified reasons, and them as a carrier would be a pretty unusual experience. So it's an interesting possibility to pair Google with Dish. Both companies having kind of famously awkward customer service issues. So we'll see. My
Yeah.
optimism is definitely measured. Let's say that.
Yeah. Um, and I also, someone in the chat said, from a customer service perspective, I'd root for Amazon to take all that over, not Google.
Okay, yeah. So
I don't.
we're thinking the same thing here, though. Yeah, Amazon.
I
Well,
don't know.
Amazon is actually, like, Amazon as a store is great for customer service. Amazon, in terms of most of their other stuff, I've heard really mixed opinions.
Yeah, I don't
Um,
know. And I'm also really. I know kind of it's kind of a weird argument. I don't want Amazon to get that much bigger, but also Google is a giant mega corporation, so I don't know who I should be rooting for here. Um, kind of in
yeah,
a
but
tough situation.
Google Google is kind of like they're the spinning plates version of a large corporation. It's like a dozen, well, 100 different small companies all trying to operate at the same time. None of them fully quite getting along.
Yeah.
Whereas Amazon is, uh, not all of it is run well, but most of it still feels like maybe 2 to 3 separate companies all working together.
Yeah, I don't know. And it would also, I don't know. There's a lot that's concerning about this. I'm not really sure what's better. Is it better for T-Mobile to not sell anything and just become a nut, like, is it better for the carriers to become consolidated, or is it better for another major tech company to own internet infrastructure? Because like if you think about it, Amazon and Google both already have a huge cloud business. So Amazon would be the back end for most of the internet, and they would be a major carrier. But also Google would be kind of in the same boat. So I don't know. It's a little bit concerning either way. I'm not sure which is worse, but that's where we're at now. So
Yeah.
good feelings.
Though at this stage, I don't know that anything other than one of those types of companies could hit that type of scale.
Yeah, no, then
No one
that's
small
kind
could
of
ever just do that. It
yeah,
it has to be somebody who's already gigantic in order to step into that
yeah,
stage.
it was never going to be, Papa's ISP that was going to buy this spectrum. It was always going to be a massive company, and I do still wish it would be. I don't know. Best case scenario, I would have liked to see again like a cable company, kind of like Dish, buy the spectrum and use it to deploy uh, basically landline 5G. That'd be nice to see. But Dish again has a history of absorbing spectrum and doing nothing with it. Uh,
Yeah.
so I don't. Again,
In the grand scheme, it's at least good if somebody is going to make use of that spectrum. Having a bunch of dead spectrum out there really wasn't benefiting anybody. Not to say that it's necessarily going to change all that much, but at least it puts some of it back in play. There's a little bit of possibility for maybe reshuffling some of the spectrum once Dish actually it wants to maybe break into a couple of other spectrums that other people have. A little bit of trading could occur now, because
yeah.
there'd be motivation for it.
Yeah, that's true. And actually the one thing that's motivated Dish to previously say like, oh, we're building a 5G network is that it's always had the looming threat of, oh, the FCC is going to take it away if you don't do anything with it.
Yeah.
So I don't, maybe this will convince them further, but yeah,
Well,
so
I
that's
truly believe that's what's got them motivated to talk to anybody right now. And it
yeah.
doesn't surprise me at all that Google is the most attractive option since they already have a business in place, already have phones, they already have
Yeah.
all this stuff. And of course, they created Android. Well, somewhat.
Well,
So,
it's viable because they're in the game, but they don't own Spectrum.
right.
Like, like Dish couldn't go around and sell the Spectrum back to Verizon or AT&T or the well, I was gonna say the FCC would complain, but I don't actually think they do anything.
Yeah,
That's what the FCC likes to not do anything these days.
no kidding. Um,
But yeah, it is amazing how this T-Mobile and Sprint story just gets crazier and crazier and crazy. Like, am I gonna wake up tomorrow and like Hershey's wants to launch a carrier with the Spectrum? I have no idea.
oh, part of me now wants that.
Well,
I can't
it's gonna
explain
happen.
why.
It's gonna happen tomorrow.
I now need my Hershey branded carrier.
You get a Hershey bar and it has like $10 prepaid service in it. Like a Wonka golden ticket.
I
Oh
don't know.
my god.
I was kind of hoping for the opposite. Like you pay your monthly bill and they just send you chocolate.
Oh. I'd
Come
go.
on, that'd be
Yeah,
awesome.
that'd
Awesome.
be good. I
It,
would definitely gain 20 pounds.
oh god, yeah. Yeah, no, and this would be like the worst thing in the world for diabetics but hey, I'm just saying perks.
Yeah. I think there's some viable merger opportunity there with the chocolate industry and carriers. Just throwing it out there.
Oh.
Oh my god.
And also in weird news related.
I was gonna say
No, go
Archon
ahead.
and the
Sorry,
I was gonna say Archon in the Twitch chat's killing it. He said, "You'll always have bars with Hershey."
Oh, I like that. That's so good.
That was excellent. But yeah, so speaking of crazy carrier news, there was some news coming out of Ting, which is it's been a pretty popular MVNO for years. Like I remember even years ago, they were doing a ton of advertising on YouTube and podcasts and all those fun new media. But the news coming out now is that Ting is ditching one of the features that's made it really popular over the years. Um, so if you're not familiar with Ting, they're kind of like Google Fi, where they're marketing it for the people who don't use a whole lot of cell data and minutes and text and that sort of thing. You can mix and match with Ting. So like if you don't call anyone, then you can just pay for like 5 minutes a month, and if you don't use your phone a lot, it can get very cheap. But one of the advantages that Ting has had for a long time is that you can either get a GSM SIM card or a CDMA SIM card, and you can even get those on like the same account. So if maybe you have a GSM only phone and a CDMA phone, and you can even get phones that work on both and just switch SIMs if you get into an area that's not covered well. Um, and the GSM SIM cards were backed by T-Mobile, and the CDMA cards used Sprint. I'm sorry. But now they announced that they're moving away from T-Mobile. I believe in the full statement they said that they were hoping by now the T-Mobile Sprint acquisition would be finalized, and they could make terms with the new combined company. But because that hasn't happened yet, and their current contract is running out, they've decided to just jump ship, and now Verizon will be their new major carrier partner, which means the GSM SIM cards will stop working at some point, which I'm sure that's it. This whole thing's probably going to disrupt a good amount of teen customers. I tried looking to see if there were any like polls or anything from what types of devices teen customers used to like to use. I couldn't find anything concrete. But I did see where people have been using locked or phones locked to T-Mobile on Ting, because obviously those are, I'm sure, far cheaper than unlocked phones. Those will obviously not work. Also, if for people that like to import phones that maybe weren't designed to be used in the US, like Xiaomi devices, those will probably not work either on the new network, because phones outside the US, they don't really have a reason to support the LTE bands that Verizon uses. So I'm sure those will all be terrible. And of course, Verizon has a network whitelist. So you can only use certified phones on Verizon's network. I'm not sure if that also applies to carriers using Verizon's network, or if it's just Verizon itself. But either way, there'll probably be some people mad about this. Ting's already said that they expect they'll spend around 10 million during the whole transition. Maybe they'll, I imagine at least they'll send new SIM cards to everyone. I don't know if they'll pay for replacement devices or not. But
I part of me thinks that they're not, they don't have to, but they're gonna get stuck doing it, at least to some extent, and some of that might depend on like how old someone's device is.
yeah, because the other factor in this is that technically the CDMA SIM cards are not going to be like operating on CDMA, because Verizon's phasing out its CDMA network. It's all LTE now. So it really depends on, does your device have the LTE bands that it needs to work on Verizon's network. And someone in the Twitch chat pointed out that the Verizon's network whitelist also applies to Xfinity Mobile and Visible. So that could end up being the case with Ting, and that would definitely really suck, because there aren't a whole lot of there are far fewer phones certified on Verizon's network than you can get on AT&T or whoever else.
Yeah, in the long run, like it's tough to predict exactly what the fallout of this is going to be. It could be pretty trivial, especially if Ting decides to sort of cover at least some of the expense for switching devices, or uh there are a lot of things they could do. In practical terms, they could even run like trade-in programs. And obviously they wouldn't run it themselves. They would just basically contract through one of the trade-in companies out there that already exists. They could do that and basically do like a price match. They could do various other things to kind of, ease that transition. But on the other hand, like the whole purpose of Ting is to run on kind of razor thin margin.
Yeah,
And
it's they're operating on not a whole. I'm sure they're not making amazing money, and
no,
also the fact that a lot of people who use Ting, they're on it to save money. So I'm sure a lot of the people on Ting are not using, you know, super high end flagship phones that have all the LTE bands in the world. A lot of people on Ting are using like Moto Gs and lower end mid range phones because it's it's who they're marketing towards, is people who want to save money.
Exactly. And I wouldn't even put it past I have no idea, but I would even be kind of expecting a large percentage of Ting's audience is probably using phones that are more than 2 years old.
Yeah.
So, and I imagine a lot of those people are probably expecting to keep using those phones for a good another year, 2 years, maybe longer. And that sort of thing is it's rough to expect or to throw that at a lot of people. A lot of customers I can imagine will be like, yeah, you know what? We'll just go try that other guy. They cost $5 more a month, but we don't have to deal with
Yeah.
this.
And I did already see some comments from people who were already looking at jumping ship. But yeah, there's not a whole lot of information about what this means for Ting customers yet, because this news came out of a press release from Ting's parent company. There isn't like a blog post on Ting's website yet with all the details. That's supposed to come later. And also the GSM SIM cards will probably only stop working at the end of next year. So there isn't like an immediate threat that your phone will stop working if you have Ting. So
Right.
yeah, just
So, and as Burns DG brought up in the chat room, Ting is giving people 18 months notice. The one catch I would say to that is and I know that this is a little bit of the edge case, but I'm sure it still accounts for a lot of people. If you just bought your phone somewhere in the last couple of months, 18 months is still going to feel like too short a time.
Yeah. So yeah, go buy some Moto Gs on Swappa. That's all I've got to say. Because those bad boys will work on Verizon just fine.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a rough thing for any carrier to do. And I remember, I know it's not quite the same thing, but I think back to when there was a local carrier or local to my area, and AT&T purchased that carrier and just basically swallowed it up. When that happened, it was rough watching because they gave honestly a really long notice to people, and still there were people holding on to their old phones right up until the last day. And when everything got disconnected, first thing they did was went to whatever competitor there was. People don't like being forced into anything, especially with a carrier. So no matter what, they're going to take a hit for doing this.
Yeah, well, like you said, it also messes up with people's upgrade schedules. Like it's not that big of a deal now that the concept of locking people in a contract to a specific, carrier or phone for 2 years has mostly gone away. But it's still like people expect to have a phone for this amount of time, whether it's 2 years or 3 years or 6 months, and they don't want to deviate from that.
Exactly.
But yeah. So speaking of crazy news, because this has been a long time coming. The JBL Link Bar is finally available to buy. You can buy it right now. The thing that was vaporware for 3 years, it felt like. I don't know if it was actually that long, but
I think it's just over 2.
Yeah, so it's still crazy. This is so if you're not familiar with this or you've forgotten, I totally get that because it's been forever since this was first announced. This is a sound bar from JBL that has Android TV with Google Assistant built in. So the concept is that you plug in all your HDMI devices into the sound bar and then plug the sound bar into your TV. And Android TV would kind of work as a layer on top of all your devices, kind of like if y'all remember Xbox One when it was first announced. One of the main selling points was that you could plug like your DVR into it, and the Xbox would show a UI over your DVR, and it could control it with Kinect, of course. Well, but this is kind of the same general idea, is that you basically your Android TV would be the controller for everything else. And of course, it's also a high-end soundbar, so presumably it would improve your home media experience. But this had a lot of delays. It was originally pushed back to late 2018, and then to spring 2019, and then finally to summer of this year. So you can finally buy it. It's $400. Um, so go grab them. Hopefully, there's no more issues that show up later. We get emails about later. Fingers crossed. Because I imagine if you're waiting this long and you still have to pay $400, you're going to be pretty mad if there are software bugs.
So I actually saw this before it was announced. When I was at Google I/O a couple of years ago, JBL brought a couple of us back, and we did like basically it was supposed to be a pre-announcement like tour of this thing, and we got to, in theory, like play with it, but not really. Um, and I remember thinking at the time, this is great. This is what I want to see happening with Android TV. But and it looked like it was working fantastically. We saw no problems with it. It honestly makes me so curious what happened that made this thing get delayed so
Yeah,
much, because there was no
because
reason to think that it had a problem back then. I mean, it looked great.
well, it was. I mean, this is a different form factor because I don't think there's been like an Android TV device that sort of like overlays on top of other inputs, as far as I know.
Yeah, but again, this is what we saw 2 years ago, and it was working really well then.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And
And
there's also been, I know that the only other example I can think of is, I believe at E3, either this year or last year, NVIDIA showed off a monitor that had an NVIDIA Shield built into it. And I believe it displayed over whatever input you had going into the gaming monitor. So that's been out
yeah,
for a while. I
I
don't know if
remember
there's
that
been
too.
any issues.
But yeah, so at least it finally happened. It's still so suspicious, and I don't think it's a reason not to get it. Um, at the price and the fact it's honestly a little bit of an ugly sound bar might be reasons not to get it. But
It's a big boy.
it,
That's a big
I
soundbar.
am it is. I am genuinely still so curious if any like remaining issues are there, or did they just hold it back for like products planning and staging reasons, like trying to get it out at a certain time of year. Things like that can also play in, but little
Yeah.
curious what the bugs might be.
Yeah. I am too. I'm sure there's a interesting story to go along with that. So speaking of things that are taking forever, um, there was a report that Qualcomm might make a new wearable chip that isn't terrible. Um, so if you're not caught up with the state of Wear OS, most watches running Google's Wear OS use chips from Qualcomm, and Qualcomm has not made a good wearable chip basically since Wear OS was first introduced. The first wave of watches had, I believe, Snapdragon 400 chips, and then Qualcomm made a chip specifically for watches called the Wear 20. Was it the Wear
The
2100?
2100.
2100, yes.
Yeah.
And it was basically the same thing, but it had a little bit of extra optimization for watches. I think it had better battery life. And we had that for 2.5 years, I believe. And then we
Sounds
got,
right.
yeah, and then we finally last year, we got the upgrade, which was the Wear 3100. And it wasn't really an improvement in any noticeable way. The battery life on the few watches that have this chip are pretty much the same, maxes out at like 2 days. There's some extra stuff in the chip that has not been activated by Wear OS yet. There's supposed to be a sports mode that I believe was supposed to let you like track workouts and that sort of thing in sort of a low power environment. It was supposed to last longer. That has not materialized yet. Google said they're still working on it. I don't know why it's taking so long, but anyway, so this has all been a major disappointment. And it's also been one of the main factors why Wear OS is kind of struggling, because the only viable option for chips is not changing at all. It's pretty stagnant. And there was a report that Qualcomm is making an actual improvement they're supposedly making a new Wear OS chip, either named the Snapdragon Wear 429 or the Snapdragon Wear 2700. And there's not a lot of details about this chip, except that it would actually be an improvement because right now the current Wear chip is still on 28 nanometers, which is like ancient in technology terms on mobile. I don't know what the Snapdragon 840 is. I think it's 18 nanometer. Let me see.
I do not recall.
Uh, Crap. I wish I knew this. I wish I would have wrote this down. Let me see. It's 10 nanometer.
Oof.
Yeah. So you can imagine we're several generations behind on the current Wear chips. So the rumor is that this would be, I don't know if we don't have an exact. Oh yes, I'm sorry. The upcoming chips will have 64-bit support. They'd be on a 12 nanometer node with Cortex A53 CPU cores, which is the newer ones that support 64-bit and all the fun stuff. So that's the rumor, that we're actually going to get an actual meaningful upgrade in terms of Wear OS hardware. But even if this is announced tomorrow, it's still going to be at least 6 months until the first watches with this show up. 'Cause I think the Wear 21 or the Wear 3100 was announced in like mid last year, and the first watch with it was the Fossil Sport, and that came out early this year.
Right.
So it's going to take a while for this to propagate. So
Well, it could. I mean, in all likelihood, it almost certainly will. But I will say this: if some of the partners are eager to start shipping something, especially because when the 3100 started shipping, there was a lot of attention from the community. People wanted watches with this, but because a lot of stuff wasn't enabled yet, and there were obviously like a lot of software issues with it, Google was not super quick to getting it out or getting support out for it. And then some of the partners seem to hold back too.
yeah, I
Depending
remember
on,
the. Oh, go ahead.
well, I was going to say, depending on how all of this plays out, um, assuming support is actually added to Wear OS quickly, and assuming the partners actually have like real benefits to show off, I would not really put it past them to be like, look, here's no, all that stuff before, forget it. All of that. It doesn't matter anymore. We've done it right this time. We swear. Here we go. I could honestly see like kind of almost like a relaunch blitz where they're pushing hard to get some new watches out there that would be massive improvements over the old ones, assuming that they would be massive improvements over the old ones.
Yeah, I could see that. I know, like, the Wear 3100 launch was so weird because the first watch with it I think was like that Mont Black one that's like $2,000. So no one's gonna buy that.
Yeah.
So the first viable watch I think with it was the Fossil Sport, which
Wait,
came out again like
was it
early this year.
Montblanc or Tag Heuer?
It was one of
Or
those. It was some
actually,
absurdly expensive
you
watch.
know what? I think you're right. I think it was Montblanc, and then Tag Heuer, I think, was the first with the 2100 or something like that. It was,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's always
they
like,
were first
yeah.
to something.
But yeah, I could see Fossil like maybe moving up their schedule if this chip is actually any good. Because the problem also with Wear OS is that the main OEM right now is Fossil. Fossil's the one that's supporting Wear OS right now more than anyone else. And Fossil's mostly selling to people who don't really understand or care about the tech behind this stuff. They just want a nice looking smartwatch that works well. And if the new chip is like a major battery life improvement, I could see Fossil really stepping up their game and getting something out quickly under the marketing, like this has way better battery life than any other watch we've made to this date. But I don't know. It'll be interested to see. I know Fossil's been generally they've actually been stepping up their generations quite a bit. Like I know the Fossil Sport came out, and then they pretty soon after that started updating all their other Fossil Q watches with the same reference design that the Fossil Sport uses.
Yeah. Well, basically, same watch, different shell.
Yeah,
Which, to be
yeah,
fair, with smartwatches, that's kind of all you really need in a lot of
yeah,
instances.
exactly. Yeah. So
Um,
here's
eh,
hoping. Here's
the
hoping.
the other thing I would question is, somewhat for timing or timing wise, like how much are they going to aim for a specific like time of year release? Because I don't know if this is at all practical. It probably isn't, but if they could do something like this and have it out, say in we'll say October. I think that's unrealistic. But if this is further along than maybe the reports suggested, if they could have something out before Christmas, I can imagine them rushing on it. If they can't do that, uh, I think they would be probably smart to actually wait a little bit longer and try to push this for like a spring release of next year.
Yeah, I don't know, because there's the factor of I know every time the discussion comes up about a Pixel watch, the
I knew
main
you were thinking
argument,
that.
yeah, I know. The main argument is always Google's not going to make a Pixel watch until there can be something differentiating it from other Wear OS devices. And a new chipset would would potentially be that factor that could make the Pixel watch very appealing. But at the same time, Fossil's been the one that's been carrying Wear OS for the past 1 or 2 years. And I'm sure that wouldn't make Fossil happy at all if Google had first dibs on this new chip. Because like if you can imagine, I'm thinking from the perspective of head of hardware at Fossil. They're waiting for this chip too, because I'm sure if it has meaningful improvements, that'll make it easier to sell. And can you imagine if Google came in and said, "Okay, thank you guys so much for propping up our platform for 2 years. We're just going to take this new chip and thanks. I think we'll see you some other time."
No,
I'm sure that wouldn't help. That probably hurt Wear OS quite a bit as a platform, I would imagine.
I'm with you on that. The only thing is, I don't think it's going to matter too much to Fossil in that regard, as long as they're not held back by a lot. If Fossil gets to release a bunch of watches, let's say a month after Google does, they're not going
Yeah.
to care. I genuinely don't think Fossil's going to care because they know watches are largely a fashion accessory. So
Mm-hmm.
as long as their watches look different than what Google puts out, I don't think that's going to matter to them at all. Um,
That's true. That's true.
where I think more where I think Google would benefit more if they're doing a Pixel Watch is if they were to put something hardware wise, not just a processor, but a new sensor, some kind of feature. Let's pretend for a second that they could put solely into a watch, which I know theoretically they could maybe, but I don't know how practical that is. At least space wise, like it might take too much inside
Right.
the watch body. But if
Well,
Google could do that, that
if we've
is that's the big one.
well, if we've learned anything from the LG Watch Sport, I think it's that Google is not too scared of trying to sell a gigantic watch.
Yeah,
Oh,
no kidding.
that was a fun one.
No, I have it over my shoulder. It's
Yeah,
yeah, it has not been charged in a while.
yeah,
Um,
it's a big boy.
it is. It's almost weapon status. But
Cody killed a man with the LG Watch Sport.
I mean, it may have happened.
Almost,
There
yeah.
were no cameras, so we
Yeah.
don't know.
You don't have proof.
We cannot back this up.
We can't confirm nor deny.
Find the body. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
find it. I dare you.
Oh my god. Yeah, you'll never find it because it's
And if you
buried
do
under the
successfully
watch.
find it, there, yes, the watch is literally a cap on top of the body. Wow,
Oh my God.
this went into all kinds of fun directions on that one.
I don't know how we got to that from talking about a processor, but that's how the podcast rolls.
Oh no, we can easily loop it all back together. You will not need sorry, I have to reach for the watch to demonstrate this. You will not need a watch this thick
Ooh,
again when the new processor comes out. You see that? You see that
fingers
huge,
crossed.
massive watch? You will not need a watch that sticks out that far above your wrist ever again with the new processor. That's the goal.
So I have to ask, did you pay money for that watch?
No, it was a review unit.
Okay. Because I was about, so I was like, I know some people like huge watches, but that that watch is ginormous and it's ugly on top of that. It's a double whammy watch.
When people say they want huge watches, what they usually are talking about is the watch face. They want something with a large footprint on the wrist. They don't want something that sticks up
Yeah.
off the wrist. So I think that is the defining thing. I also want to throw in, like
And
a
the
lot of times we don't get to keep review units. This is one, honestly, you could tell they did not give a thought to wanting this back.
yeah.
Just being honest here, they had zero interest in getting this back. And the same happened to be true with the LG Watch W7. Um,
Oh.
yeah, though there's a much longer story to this. I won't go into it, but I've actually had two W7s, and they did want the first one back, and with good reason.
Yeah.
There was a little concern it could do a Note 7 situation, which something strapped to your wrist, you don't want that.
No,
So not a good idea.
no, you don't want those third-degree burns on your arm. But yeah, and see the watch. Now that I remember, the watch sport also had like a small screen for the body it had, right? Like it didn't take up
Well,
the
not the
whole width.
whole. Um, if you can see
Oh,
video, like that's
yeah.
not bad.
No, I guess it's not terrible. But yeah,
Um,
for the people who want like a bigger screen, like too bad the Moto 360 still isn't around because that was like the perfect example if you wanted a big watch but not massive thickness.
yeah, too bad that was not a good actual watch. Battery life
No,
that
no,
measured
it
in a few
wasn't.
hours, and lots
Yeah,
of stability issues, poor performance.
I got the someone from Google sent me the Moto 360 after I made those YouTube videos of me running crap on my Gear Live. So I got a Moto 360 and I love that watch. It was fantastic. I do remember on multiple occasions having to lug the charging dock to school with me because it would die on me like in the middle of the day near the end. It was the battery life left a lot to be desired, and then also it did get to the point where the battery started bloating. So that's when it went in my closet and it stayed there, and that's when I bought a really cheap used original LGG watch on eBay, and I used that for a long time, and that was great. And then I got a Huawei watch, and then I got a Fossil Sport. I've bought a lot of smartwatches, is what I'm trying to get to here.
I've had a handful, and I think let's see. I actually have not paid for most of mine, but that's because about half of them are in some way connected to a Google I/O.
Yeah,
So, yeah. Um,
yeah. I've Most of the ones I've got are either used or refurbs. So I never bought anything day one except I got the Gear Live like 2 weeks after it went on sale. That's the only one I bought like brand new. That was totally worth it. That watch was great.
you're
Except the
crazy.
charger. Except the charger. That charger was terrible. It broke on me twice.
Yeah. No,
I
it was
remember
famously bad.
I had great memories of the charger breaking on me. So before I went to work, I would put the charger on top of the watch and then put an atlas on top of the watch to get the pins to connect to charge while I waited like 2 weeks for a replacement to come from an eBay seller in South Korea. That was a lot of
So
fun.
bad.
Yeah, good times.
Oh wow. No, and this I think is a big part of what hurt Android Wear in the early days is some of the things manufacturers did were just absurd. They were kind of embarrassing. Anything from bad charging cradles. I can't not look at my Huawei watch and think, how many times have I had to sit there for like
Oh my
dozens of
god, the Huawei
seconds
Watch
just trying to
charger.
line up the pins, getting the pins to
That
actually connect.
I
So
can
ridiculous.
I lost. I finally replaced my Huawei watch when I bought the Fossil Sports. That was 6 months ago, something like that. But I cannot count how many times I picked my Huawei watch up in the morning and it was dead because I didn't spend 4 minutes aligning the pins exactly on the watch, like like I'm in the space shuttle and I'm trying to dock to the ISS with like incredible precision. I have to dock the watch into its charger.
Well, and it was made worse by the fact that the smallest bump could unseat it.
Yeah.
So, like, you might just slide it like along a perfectly smooth surface, do absolutely nothing that should unseat it, and you might come back and find it just stopped charging.
Yeah.
Happened so often. Anytime, like half the time I left my house without my watch, it was because the watch discharged when I didn't expect it to.
Yeah. Well, that was me. Like I'd wake up in the morning so many times and my watch would be on 10% because it didn't actually connect for the night.
Yep.
And yet somehow that was still the best Android Wear watch for a very long time. that's that's how things were in the Wear OS ecosystem. So yeah. So I do hope this rumor about the new chips is true, because I really, I know we talked about it at length on the Q&A show, but the processor is one of the main reasons why Wear OS is in the sad state that it's in. But also Google has to really work on its software support because the app situation in Wear OS is quickly degrading, and that's always been its main advantage over Samsung's watches. So yeah, Google's going to need a multi-pronged approach to bring Wear OS back, and I'm not sure if it's actually going to do that or not.
Well, let's admit there are a few complications.
Oh my
Sorry,
god.
sorry. It's awful. I
You
know.
can't see my face right now, but I'm face palming really hard. I promise.
You actually should be achieving the full face palm and eye roll in that.
Yeah. No,
I mean, we
I'm like the really old meme picture where someone face palmed it and went through their skull.
yes.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway. No, Wear still has a little bit of time left to resurrect itself for
Pun
sure.
not intended.
Yeah, actually, that was a pun not intended. It was, but
Oh,
now that it's out there, I'm taking it. But no, seriously, I think we have some opportunity for Wear to kind of come back, but they definitely have an uphill battle on this because
yeah.
people are like Apple came out with the Apple Watch and it was pretty easy to mock and well deserved. Mockery was done in those early days, and they fixed a lot of their issues, and we've seen Wear kind of not fixing a lot of its issues. So another good chance when some good hardware hits. That's the perfect opportunity. I'm hoping the Wear team has something good baking in back in Mountain View, like just ready to surprise people.
Yeah. I'd hope so. But at the same time, from the outside, it really feels like the Wear OS team is like two people sharing a cubicle in the corner of a Google office.
Yeah, no kidding. And it's funny. SpeakXJ is bringing up uh, the two infamous issues right now. One is the rumored, like very heavily rumored Google Coach never happened, and then also Google Fit, which it's been a problem for a long time now, but we recently this week covered that there are a ton of people who just can't even log into Google Fit. Like the accounts are just basically not working. It stops syncing data. It's just one problem after another. And Google knows that this is a problem. They've known about it for a while. And strangely, it hasn't really been fixed. So it does not seem like the maintenance. It seems like it's not even in maintenance support at this stage. The fit stuff, at least. And uh, obviously, Wear, like one of their big marketing points for Wear was fit. So when one of your big important products is not working on another one of your products, both products tend to do a lot worse.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating because Wear OS is in this, it's in like a zombie state where you can't call it dead because there are new watches coming out with it all the time and they're updating the actual system, but the individual features and apps on top of the system are not getting the attention they need. So it's this weird, it's very strange. Like it really doesn't seem like Wear OS is in a maintenance mode or it's dead, but it's not getting the attention is not going into the areas it should be.
Right.
So
So anyway, with talk of things being dead, we should probably put tonight's podcast to rest. It's a miracle it actually has lived, I must say.
yeah, this
we
is gonna be a real fun one for me to edit. I'm already looking forward to it.
Yeah, it was resurrected from the ashes. Anyway, with that said, uh if you've enjoyed tonight's podcast and our trials and tribulations with connectivity and just stumbling over uh, shilling scripts, it's a thing. Please support us. We would appreciate it. You would be awesome individuals if you do. You can support us by subscribing on Twitch. Twitch subscribers, of course, get a Rhine emoji, the infamous Rhine emoji. And if you are an Amazon Prime subscriber, you get a free Twitch subscription every month. Just come back and please make sure to re-up that subscription every month. It doesn't happen automatically because, well, Amazon wants to save its money. But yeah, you can do that. Help us keep the show running and help Corbin get his audio editing skills worked out.
Yes, $1 gets me one better internet.
It does. And with that, I wish you all a good night, a good morning, a good evening, a good lunch, whatever time it is for you right now. Enjoy it well.
Good night.